Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we're going to focus on finding a curriculum, how to do it, what are some of the tools and tricks that you can incorporate into your investigation. This is going to be the first of a series of podcasts that are going to focus on curriculum, finding the curriculum, and what type of curriculums are out there and the ones that we recommend for people who have young learners that are accidental homeschoolers. They're just getting started out. We're going to make a lot of recommendations. We're going to get into the weeds, but today we're going to talk about how to find the curriculum, not necessarily what curriculum to find, but how to find it. But before we begin, if you get a chance, make sure to go join us on Facebook at Homeschool Together Podcast. Connect with us on Instagram at Homeschool Together Podcast. And if you can, find it in your heart, please.
If you like our show at all.
If you like our show at all, leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps other people find us. I think that's part of the secret sauce of their ranking system. So just want to make sure if you can go out there, please do that.
Right. If you could just review us and help us move up the ranks past, like podcasts from 2006 that are no longer operational, are still ranking in the top 20.
They're smoking us.
They are.
They haven't released a podcast in 3 years. What is this? Anyway, Ariel, there's a lot of moms out there that go into the Facebook group and they ask one question. What curriculum do you recommend for my X-year-old?
Right. Yeah. This is a very common one that we see all the time, especially this year and this time of year, right before school starts. This is a hard one, right? Finding a curriculum, you either have a recommendation from someone you know really well and you go, oh, okay, I'm going to do that because they recommended it. Or you do what you said and you ask the Facebook group and the answer is going to be 100 people telling you all the different curriculums
101 different ideas.
There's a lot of overlap. It's not that bad, but it is pretty staggering. I mean, if you're new to it, you're expecting to hear maybe, 2 or 3 options and say, okay, I can pick between these. It's not even close. There are so many options.
Yeah, it's like a big giant Plinko machine. It doesn't, there's a lot of questions you need to answer,
right.
Not just ask, 500 random strangers what you guys use. There's a lot of considerations, and we're going to walk through these considerations on how you figure out, what are the decisions I need to make on what curriculum works best for me? What should I purchase that's going to work for my family, works for me, works for our situation, whatever that may be. We're going to teach you a lot of those tips and tricks, a lot of the things that Ariel did to find our kind of the formula that you use to find our curriculums that we use.
Yeah, I think it's really challenging because there are so many right answers. There's a lot of great secular homeschool curriculum out there. I mean, there's not a lot of options. Yeah. It's not like we have as many options as the faith-based community does, but the ones that we have, there's some rockin' curriculums. And so I think the hard thing is you see them and we all get absorbed by this, I want to do them all, which is also a problem.
Or there's the parent out there who's absolutely paralyzed to make a decision because they're afraid that if they make a decision, they're going to make the wrong decision.
Right.
And people tend to catastrophize a lot of times. Like, if I make the wrong decision here, it's going to hurt my child down the road.
Well,
and that's just not true.
Yeah. I think it's hard, right? We get one chance. Our daughter's going to be a kinder one time. And so I want to make a really good decision for that.
But actually, luckily for us, we can make that mistake now because we got a second one that, we'll call her the do-over kid. So our first is going to she's got a lot of...
I mean, I think we're doing a pretty decent job with
we'll call the second one. She's going to be perfect because we've made all our mistakes with the first one. Isn't that the right way to think about it?
I don't know if it's going to work that way.
I don't think so.
Best laid plans.
All right, so let's get into it. Important curriculum considerations. What are the first things that somebody needs to think about when they're saying, okay, I want to learn how to figure out what type of curriculum I need and what's going to work for me? What are those initial considerations that, a mom or a father should consider?
So each time you look at a curriculum, and let's say you're looking for a math curriculum, let's just make something up. So what you really want to be cognizant of is, what content does this curriculum cover? So you need to have a goal in mind for your child, for your homeschool for this year, and say, okay, it's math. I want my kid to get to this certain level in math this year. And so whatever curriculum you choose, it needs to cover the content that you want to address in this school year. So that's or over whatever period of time, right? It needs to be content appropriate. The second consideration is, what method does the curriculum use to teach, and how does this align with your learner's learning style, your teaching style? Is this method going to work for your family? Is your learner kinesthetic or visual or auditory? So, have a mind for how the curriculum is going to present the information to you. And
when you refer to a method, does that refer to the method that the curriculum implements on how to teach the learner, whether that's through literature, through, book work, things of that nature as well? Or is that included in method?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's right. The content is the what. Yeah. The method is the how. And part of also that how that I think is really important to consider is the delivery mechanism. So this is how they're going to teach it. And is this an online? Is it book work? Is it enriched with other technology pieces,
manipulatives, things
is it
of
all
that nature?
Right, is this all workbook based, right? So I think you have to look at the delivery method and make sure that also aligns. So those are three things. Every time you look at a curriculum, you should really think about those three pieces.
Does that factor into their budget as well? Like, those
Absolutely.
Decisions are important, right? Some curriculums can cost a very wide range.
Right. Some of them are amazing and they're very costly. So yeah, that's the other consideration too. Good point.
So once they've kind of taken in those considerations and they're figuring out what they feel is going to be right with respect to the time that they have, are they going to be working from home? Are they a single parent? Do they have a caregiver in the house? That things that pertain to the nature of their educational environment, what their household's going to look like. What type of considerations do they need to take into account for, say, their learners or themselves? What are those things? So
we talked a little bit about your learner style. So
we referenced that in an earlier podcast, in our terminology podcast.
Yeah, and their learning style, are they auditory or visual or kinesthetic? What works for them? You also have to consider your own teaching style. Are you a really hands-on person that you want to be just like right down in there doing manipulatives and being creative and all that stuff?
Playful and energetic, things of that nature.
Right. Maybe that's totally you. Yeah. I think, like, for example, this is you, right? You love being hands-on. Yeah. I have a really hard time being super creative. I would tend to go with more of a workbook style for myself. That wouldn't work for our child, so that wouldn't work for us. But
yeah, that's a good way to show the disconnect, that if you're a bookworm type of person and then your kid is more kinesthetic, you may have some friction there.
Right. Like, I would choose a textbook and she would hate that.
You say you're not creative, but I think you are. And most parents are. You don't have to be, some entertainer or anything like that. You don't have to be super creative, but I think anybody can overcome maybe some limitations that they have with respect to their meshing with their learner. I think it's not an overwhelming thing that.
Well, so I guess what it would really be too is not just like, I have a hard time coming up with something from scratch.
Sure.
Right. To say, make something that's kind of boring more enjoyable. So if I were the primary teacher, I might want to pick something that maybe had all the creativity built into the curriculum, so I didn't have to think of ways to make it fun because it's already there, for example. So you want to think about your child's learning style. You want to think about your teaching style. And then you also want to take into consideration your situation. So you talked about you're working from home, you're a single parent. What if you have 4 other children that also need your time? You might not want to choose a curriculum that involves, a lot of focus time with you if it doesn't need to be, right? Obviously, something like math is going to need a lot of focus time, but there could be options for other types of curriculums, to history or social studies or anything else, that maybe you want to choose something that's not so time intensive for yourself because you don't have that to give, right? So kind of look at the curriculum through what I would say is you have these considerations of the method, the delivery, your budget,
all the dials,
all
in your
those
life,
things.
yeah.
Look at them through the lens of you, your learner, and your situation. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the way I would phrase it.
You try to find those dials, that the settings for your family and you and your kid, and then You want to kind of take an objective viewpoint of
Right.
your situation.
So before you even start shopping,
Yeah.
because the shopping, it's fun, but you have to be able to start narrowing things down, and you can't do that if you don't understand these pieces. So
And simply
think
asking
about it and talk about it.
strangers on Facebook is, it's one way to get information. You're going to be getting their opinions. They're going to have filtered all of these decisions that we just talked about through their own lens of their own
Right.
lives. And then they're going to project their decision on what they like back to you. And that may not necessarily. And also, if you ask that question, you get like 100 responses. How is that helping you? You're just getting a deluge of information that you're just going to get swamped, right?
I think it's helpful, because if I just Google search,
Sure.
secular kindergarten
Well,
curriculum,
and if
that's
out of
really
the 100
tough.
examples, 25 all come up as Blossom and Root. Okay, that's a good starting point, right? Obviously.
Right. I mean, you hear from people what's popular. What I like about asking people, because, I have done this, the Ask Facebook. The one thing that I really do like about that is you hear the opinion without influence directly of advertisement. So if I just Google search, hey, what's, best kindergarten curriculum or whatever, I'm getting things filtered through the lens of, who paid the most to get up in the rankings of search
Or
and stuff. So I do
it's a
like
mommy blogger,
crowdsourcing a little bit.
Or you'll get an article from 2016, and maybe that's not as applicable as it is today.
It might not be as current. So, So while that's a great way to get some ideas, what we're going to try to share with you is a different method that you could take that will help you hopefully narrow in on the couple of choices. That
And to be
you might
honest,
have.
this is the method you use to figure out the curriculums that we are using right now. So,
Right.
What is the Rainbow Resource Center?
So it's a great website online, and they have really helpful support people. By the way, they're really nice, and they'll help you find things if you have direct questions. I forgot to add
so
that.
you got a mom, you got a parent who's gone through all of our recommendations here. They've made all decisions. They kind of understand where they are. They go to the Rainbow Resource Center. What are they going to do?
So first thing to do is to head to their request catalog page, and we're going to put a link to this in the show notes so you don't feel you have to write this down. Go ahead and request the catalog for curriculum. While you're at it, request the enrichment catalog also. It's fabulous, with all kinds of extra activities and things. So request the catalog.
Yeah, Ariel almost walked into a car from the mailbox looking through the enrichment catalog.
It's really great. So I love it. It's my favorite thing I've gotten in the mail ever. So the catalog is terrific, and while you're waiting for it to come, you can get some information on their website that kind of mirrors the catalog. But what it has in it is sections for every different type of curriculum. Okay, so I'm looking for a reading curriculum. There is an entire color-coded section in this book that's all the different reading curriculums. It's going to have your costs, a brief description of it. There's this large table, and it's going to tell you the name of the curriculum, what grades it's applicable for, and whether the curriculum is secular, religious, or neutral. Now, if you remember from our first podcast, obviously religious is going to be a faith-based worldview. Secular is not having any particular religious worldview. And neutral means that it avoids that altogether. So it's not going to teach anything that would offend either side. But obviously there's going to be some missing components because they're avoiding that conversation. So just know in your family what you feel comfortable with. So what we did with this, I took this catalog page and said, okay, well, we're a secular family and I don't want a neutral curriculum and I don't want a religious curriculum. So I was able to go ahead and strike those lines out. And then
does this table filter the search term, the available
it's just
items?
a PDF online.
Oh, okay.
So, and of course I did it by hand with the catalog, but even if you were doing a PDF online, you could print it out. So, okay, hey, I went ahead and I crossed out a bunch based on just the type of it. Then I was able to cross out a whole nother slew of them based on what didn't have anything available for pre-K. When you're dealing with the younger learners, which has, been our focus, you're going to have less options. So it makes it a little easier to start, honestly. When you get to that point, you'll be able to narrow it down. Okay, here's, 5 or 6 curriculums. Then I can go in to the pages in the catalog and look at them and say, ooh, this one's $800. Ooh, that might not be the one for me, or, I can get an idea. So I would say this is a great place to start. The only, and Rainbow Resource Center is this is where we bought our reading curriculum from, or was it math? I think we bought our math curriculum here because over $50 you get free shipping. And then when we actually bought we were going to buy our curriculum from the manufacturer, and they were going to charge us shipping. So we actually did use Rainbow Resource Center, and it was really great. The one downside to it is they're not going to have any kind of curriculums that aren't sold through a distributor. So
these would be primarily these online digital
curriculums.
Okay.
So, if you've heard us talk about Blossom and Root and Torchlight, those are our kind of all-in-one curriculums that cover, science and math and history and art and literature and things. Those are digital online PDFs
that leverage a lot of the library usage and all that type of stuff.
Right. Yeah. They don't come with a book
Books.
pack.
Yeah.
So those are not sold through distributors. So you're going to be missing a section of potentially really worthwhile curriculum. In our case, those were the ones we chose, and they aren't at Rainbow Resource Center. So I'd say your first step, go there and narrow down to have some good options that are, that would be sold through distributor. Second step is I would take that information with you, take your chart over to Cathy Duffy Reviews, and we'll have a link in the show notes for this.
Yep.
Because she gives incredibly detailed, or her site, hopefully she has a team, these are incredibly detailed reviews of every different type of curriculum by subject. So, hey, I'm looking for a reading curriculum, I'm going to go to the reading section. She's going to have a huge long list. What I would do with that list is look at that list against the catalog pages, and you're going to find that there's some items in there that aren't in the catalog pages that you might need to do some more research on, because those are probably something a bit smaller press or a digital curriculum, and you might want to check out more. So the great thing about Cathy Duffy is she gives great in-depth reviews, and she includes price for them. She includes recommendations. She has ones with a little, I think, an apple. These are her top 100, so you can have kind of an idea. So you can take your narrowed down list from Rainbow Resources and some extra ones you find on Cathy Duffy Reviews, and you can use her site for both of those sets of curriculums and just read at length about them. So that's what I did, and after reading those, I was able to narrow it down even further. Okay, I have 2 or 3. These are the ones I'm looking at.
And that's a great, this whole filtering down method that you
have to filter because there's probably 100 curriculums for each different subject.
You filter down to 2 or 3, you can feel pretty comfortable that you're going to make a decent decision.
Right. And when it came to us for our math, we ended up going with Right Start Math, but for us it was between Math Mammoth and Right Start, and we weren't sure which to go with because they were both awesome. We had the same feeling with All About Reading. It was either going to be All About Reading or Logic of English, which is what Torchlight recommended. They were both great. So what I did at this point, I'd read the reviews, I knew the costs, I knew that the learning style would work for our family and our learner. Then I went ahead and went to YouTube and started watching some reviews where people actually went through, they opened up the curriculum, they showed you the pages, and you really got to see in depth. And then I sat down with Matthew, since he's the primary educator, and we just talked it through. Okay, this is the pros and cons. These are the costs. This is what this one features that this other one doesn't. Which one do you think that our daughter will respond better to? We really had the full discussion and decided, okay, I think that this is the way we're going to go. And we feel really good about the decisions that we made on our curriculum from this process. And so we just wanted to share that with you all.
And the next couple podcasts that we're going to have coming up here, we'll talk a little bit more in depth on what we actually chose. And we're going to go into that depth. We'll kind of do kind of a Cathy Duffy level, homeschool podcast, review of the ones we've used, the pros and cons, the price and everything that we like and what we don't like. Mm-hmm. And then this will be a nice little series for people to maybe jump into. We've done a lot of this work for you, so keep an ear out going forward. But there's one last thing. There's a homeschool buyer's co-op. What is this? Right.
So once you've chosen what you're going to buy, now you want to get the best price on it. And one thing to look at is homeschool buyer's co-op. So what they'll do is they'll have some sort of a time frame that they'll do basically a group buy. This again is going to be your larger distributor curriculums. So it's not going to be your smaller presses, but you can get a great deal on something. Say, oh, they're having a deal on this. I'll get this for 75% of its cost by going in with the group buy of this certain piece.
We've got 4 curriculums that we're going to discuss in depth in the next couple of weeks. And half of them would probably fall into this, half of them wouldn't.
Right. We have a mixture. Yeah.
So we're not just all digital online curriculums, not just, these ones that wouldn't show up
No.
there. We do use ones like the reading program and the math program that do fall into this nature. So do keep an ear out, use these techniques, go to these websites.
Right, and they're all going to be in the show notes for you so that you can use them. If you have another method that you use to narrow down your curriculum search, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to us on our Facebook group, because this is what we found that works for us. But gosh, we'd love to hear your experience if you have another way that you've sorted through just the massive curriculum options out there.
So we tried to give you a nice little framework today of solving that initial problem that a lot of people have, that first sticking point, which is, how do I figure out what am I going to use for my family?
Right. And this is, of course, for those folks who've decided to use a curriculum, right? A lot of folks piece something together themselves, or they do unit studies. So doing a curriculum may not be for you at all, but we just wanted to include this for those of you that have decided that you want a framework to your education for your kid, that takes some of the burden off of you as far as doing a little bit of the planning. We of course do some unschooling methods too, as we talked about in our last podcast, but we do use the curriculum as a good starting point and guideposts for us. So this might not be for everyone, but we hope that this is helpful to you in finding a curriculum option that works for you and your family.
All right. Well, this was, I think, really helpful for people. So
I
let's
hope so.
Get into the end of the podcast. What we always like to do is, what are we into this week? And this week we're going to be talking a little bit about sequence drawing instructions, and I'm going to have a link in the show notes.
Oh yeah, fabulous website.
Really good website. Easy peasy and fun is the name of the website. You don't have to write that down. We'll have it in the show notes. Great little website. And the reason why we're talking about this is something that I discovered in the last, 4 or 5 weeks for my 4.5-year-old. I've been really trying to get her into art, and by art as an extension of her writing ability, her coloring ability, and the ability to use pencils, crayons. Like, we see a lot of kids, they like to scribble. I really wanted to get her into coloring inside the lines, really focusing on adding color and playing with shape and drawing, and using that as kind of a fun method to improve her penmanship.
And you've also used it because she's been starting to write her own stories, where Matthew will scribe for her. She draws the picture in the upper half of the page, and then he's writing the story. So without her ability to draw pictures that made her feel good about her own ability, we were failing a little bit at her enjoying writing good stories. And so this has really improved that.
And it's gone literally from, terrible drawing. Objectively terrible drawing.
And let's be clear, she wasn't happy with. She would do something and she would be unhappy. She wouldn't want to show it to us.
Yeah, she'd get angry and want to throw the paper on the ground because it doesn't look like Daddy's, or it doesn't look like the picture. So anyway, I found these kind of sequence drawing instructions. Now, these are very simple drawings, like if it's like a fish or a cat.
She did one the other day of a bee. That was really great.
Very simple. And basically what it is, it's like a 6 to 8 panel instruction where you draw the circle, then you're going to draw the ears, you're going to draw the arms, and it's step by step. And I think what it really helped her understand is understanding what she wants to do and what are the kind of the basic steps on how do I build shape and structure of the things that I'm trying to draw, the things that I see in my head, the things that I'm imagining, or the thing that I want to draw and then color. This has been just an amazing, explosive growth in her drawing, her writing, her storytelling ability, and it really just exploded out. And now all of a sudden we have all these other new things that we're doing, like as Ariel said, doing the drawing of the stories. This has been a huge thing for her, and it would not be possible if we hadn't actually spent a little bit of time drawing. I'm a decent drawer, and I can really draw from a set drawing. I can copy really well. So a lot of times I will sit next to her and I will be doing my own drawing, and then I will give her one of these drawings and we'll do it together, or I'll actually draw it with her. Like this morning, for example, a good example is we were starting to do a couple drawings, and I went ahead and did a bunch of, I did a cat, I did a crab, and I did a clam, and I had her fill in the missing letter, which was C. And it's one of the letters we're working on and all that type of stuff. And I was able to do those drawings, and she did them right along with me. So she can kind of reinforce, the character that she's drawing with the letter that we were learning. So it's just a lot of little techniques that we had, but it would not have been possible if I wouldn't have found these little sequential drawing descriptions that helped her really learn how to draw.
Yeah, and to be clear, these are not, you sometimes seen sequential drawings before where they say, oh, they draw kind of like a basic oval or something, and then they draw the more detailed shape around it. This isn't that
It's a
level.
very rudimentary,
This
cartoony
is, you know,
level
the
drawing.
lines that they show drawn are the final lines. They're not, nothing is draft. And this website that we're going to link, each object that you want to color, so a bee or a flower, whatever it is, if you scroll down on the page, she's going to have the sequence there, but if you go to the very bottom of the page, there's actually going to be a free PDF that you can click on, and it has the 6 drawing panels at the top, and then the lower half of the page is an open space for your child to draw. So it's a great way to do a quick printable. We've used it a few times this week actually, while we're making dinner or something, to just slide this piece of paper to our daughter and say, hey, draw us this bee. And she absolutely loved that it was printed and all ready for her with a drawing panel.
Yeah,
so,
it only
really
took
great.
her, a few times to figure out that, each panel that I'm looking at is the next evolution of my one drawing, as opposed to drawing every single panel. I had to just explain that to her the first or second time, and now you just give it to her and boom, she draws the thing. So.
Right, and this website too, each step of the drawing is done in red, so she knows that that's the new line that's being added. Anyway, it's really clicked with her.
Yeah,
We
nice
wanted
little,
to share it with everyone.
yeah, nice little trick, nice little win that we've had, and we just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!
There she was, just a walking down the street, singing do-a-dee-dee-dee-dum-dee-dee-doo. Look good,
Look good,
look fine,
look fine,
look good,
looks fine,
and I nearly lost my mind.
I might start including some of these
No.
outtakes at the very, very end for those who stick around.
No.
Yeah?
So.
What do you think?
I don't think that's a good idea.
I think that's a great idea.
No, if I knew you were going to do that, I wouldn't have said it
Ariel's
into the
30-second singing hour at the end.
No.
Launch my career as Oklahoma Extra number 8.
Oh, the farmer and the cowman should be friends.
Yeehaw!
I just want to sit on the fence because I can't dance.